Hey, good afternoon. It's Derek, and we're going through another chapter, daily chapter of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. Let's really quickly recap why we are here today. It's January 2021. Today is January 12th, and a lot of people, just like me, love to make New Year's resolutions. A lot of people, just like me, are really good at not keeping them, and the statistic that scares me is that by January 12th, most people have already forgotten or already left behind their New Year's resolutions, and their habits and their goals for the new year they've already left them behind. Today, if you're watching this in real time, is January 12th. So the goal is to go a chapter of this book, Atomic Habits, a day and learn more about making habits, good habits, so that we can get past the slump day of January 12th, that we can keep going through the end of January, keep going through the end of the year. And a year from now, we can look back and say, wow, I did a great job at keeping my habits and my goals for an entire year. That's the goal. So if you're watching along with me and getting some encouragement, that's great. This book has really helped me. Recap just a couple things really quickly that are really important about this book. We do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our habits, because unsuccessful people and successful people have the same goals. So it's not the goals that separate successful people, it's the habits, it's the processes that they have. And one way to do that is to have great habits. Habits come from our identity. Well, how do we change our identity? We pick the type of person that we want to be in the future, and then we start taking small steps today, 1% changes today and tomorrow and the next day that help us become more like that person. Today we're going to talk about the chapter, How to Make a Habit Irresistible, because the second law of behavior is make it attractive. If a habit or an action is attractive, we're more likely to do it. So let's understand a little bit more about cravings and how our bodies want cravings, because honestly, if you think about a lot of our action every day, a lot of our habits are driven by things that we crave. We want to do them, and when we want to do something, we do it. That's how we are wired. So if we can make something more enticing, we're more likely to do it, even if it's a habit that we are yet to build and something that right now we don't want to do. We got to make it attractive in order to want to do it more. So let's talk about dopamine. I think a lot of us have heard the word dopamine and know a little bit about what it is, but let's just set the table a little bit. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, and you can track through the brain activity and whatnot how much the desire is there to do something by following and tracking dopamine in the brain. So research was done in rats back in the 1950s, and a couple neuroscientist researchers found that when they blocked dopamine from releasing into the brain of the rats just completely lost all will to live. There was no desire, because the dopamine, which fed that craving, wasn't there. And so when there was no desire to do something, the action completely stopped. In more research, the neuroscientist researchers found that they blocked the dopamine into the brain, and they put some sugar on the tongue of the rats, and they found that the rats liked the sugar just as much, whether or not they were receiving dopamine or not. But when there was no dopamine, they didn't want the sugar. Even though they liked it, they didn't want it. And so they didn't eat it, because when there is no desire, action stops. And so that's why if you've tried to form good habits before, if you haven't had a desire to do them, you don't do them, because there's no desire. And when there's no desire, there's no action. So we talk a little bit more and a lot more dopamine studies, and we'll get to the conclusion without going through what all the dopamine studies were. They found that it's the anticipation of the reward, not actually getting the reward, that drives us to take action, right? So it's the anticipation of biting into the chocolate bar that causes us to want to eat the chocolate bar, not actually biting into the chocolate bar. And so when you think about it's the anticipation of a craving, it's the anticipation of a reward, not actually getting it, that makes us want to actually do something. And so once we realize that, then we can focus on making the anticipation of something the craving, and not actually the actual act of it. And once we understand that, we're trying to create an environment, we're trying to create habits that support who we want to be. And so if we can understand exactly how our bodies crave and exactly how our brains are wired to crave a reward, then we can understand how to engineer an environment and engineer our action and our willpower to do what we want to do. Desire, I love this statement from the book. Desire is the engine that drives behavior. Without desire, there's no behavior. So every action is taken because of the anticipation that precedes it. If there's no anticipation of reward, there is no desire. If there's no desire, there's no action. So James Clear talks about this technique called temptation bundling to make habits more attractive. Because let's deal with it. There are some things that just aren't going to be that attractive to do. Going and exercising is not terribly attractive. You can learn, especially if you do it for a while, you can learn to make it attractive. You can learn to enjoy it. But especially when we're getting started, it's hard to make these things attractive on their own. So temptation bundling is the idea of doing a habit that you need alongside of a habit that you want, because you're more likely to find a behavior more attractive if you get to do one of your favorite things with it. So let's talk about it. Temptation bundling looks like this. It's taking habit stacking. Remember, habit stacking from a few chapters ago was after I do this habit, I'm going to do this habit. After I do this habit, I'm going to do this habit. So after I do a current existing habit, I will do the habit I need, and after I do the habit I need, I'll do the habit I want. Because again, if I pair a habit I need with the habit I want, I'm more likely to do the habit that I actually need to do. So here's how it goes. If you want to read the news and you also need to be more thankful, after I get my morning coffee, I will say one thing that I'm grateful for that happened yesterday. And then after I say the one thing I'm thankful for yesterday, I'll read the news. See, so I'm taking an existing habit, getting my morning coffee, doing the habit that I need, saying something that I'm thankful for, and then I follow up with the habit that I want, which is getting coffee. How about this one? If you want to check Facebook, but you want to exercise more, after I pull out my phone, which is an existing habit, I will do 10 burpees, a habit that I need. After I do 10 burpees, I will check Facebook, the habit that I want. And so it's habit stacking plus temptation bundling gives you this formula to tie things that you want, that you need to do, to things that you want to do, and it makes it more attractive. So again, it's not about having an incredible amount of willpower. It's not about having an incredible amount of motivation. It's not about being this superhuman person that is just fantastic and almost a superhero when it comes to building habits. No, it's understanding how our brains work and harnessing and leveraging that knowledge to make habits that we need to do more attractive by bundling them with habits that we want to do. So if you don't remember anything from what we're talking about today, I want you to walk away with this idea. Engineering a truly irresistible habit is a hard task, but the simple strategy can be employed to make nearly any habit more attractive than it would be otherwise. So can you make going out and running 5 miles irresistible? No, but you can make it more attractive by bundling it with an existing habit that you have and a habit that you want. All right, so 2 things I want you to remember, and this is from the chapter summary, that it's the anticipation of reward, not the fulfillment itself, that actually gets you to behave, right? And if there's no craving, if there's no desire, there's no behavior. So the anticipation is the driver. And then the technique that I want you to put into practice today, the strategy is to pair an action you want to do with an action that you need to do. So think about the habits that you're trying to build, the habit that you need to do that you're struggling with. Find a habit that you want to do, pair those together, and use this technique to make your good habit irresistible and more attractive. I'm pulling for all y'all. Take care.